13 Questions by Man Transcending. Manhood in the Digital Age.
All right, back to 13 Questions. We have with us on this episode Marty Leeds. This was one that I was a little juiced to get into. You've been following Marty for quite a while, I believe, Bill.
Oh yeah, dude, I was pumped to have Marty on. Actually, the first guest that I booked for Cruising with Steak was Marty Leeds, and that was actually just happens to be 52 weeks ago.
Did you plan it that way?
Tuesday? No, I didn't. This is totally serendipitous. So I don't know. That's kind of neat. Yeah, but yeah, I've been following Marty for years. I'm a supporter of his, and I just think that the way that he talks about the English language and math makes me think and have deeper thoughts about connection, like how connected the universe is, and just how important everybody is on an individual level, and finding that spark within us that all connects us back to source. So he's been, influential in my life that way. He's just a good guy to hang out with too, and fun to talk to and easy to get along with. So I just thought he would be a great addition to the show. So yeah, I was pumped to talk to him.
He certainly was. It was a great choice. I know I certainly had my perspective on some of the language in English shifted on this. I had a couple of like, oh my God, moments. So yeah, it's a fun episode. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. If you guys enjoy this, you can help and do this. If you got a friend, you can record them. We want to make this thing as open source as possible. We were talking about it in the last episode. We think of this thing kind of like we only can reach and see and experience so much based on, the people that we know in our interests. So it's great when we get to have somebody else who can bring in, part of their world, a piece of the puzzle that we don't have access to, information that is locked away, within your realm. So yeah, I'm excited. We've already had a listener submission to the show. So if you guys happen to want to hear your grandpa or a friend, if you got an iPhone, you're set up. If you've got more, we can make it work. And if you don't know what you're doing, head on over to the Discord chats. I'll help you out. And in fact, at the end of this episode, there is so much more because, we want you to come hang out. We want to make this more than just a podcast. And I think it is. We've talked before. When I listen to Rogan, I feel like I know Rogan. When you listen to this show, I'd feel that in time you're going to start to feel like the 13 questions. And, we want to have a place where you can continue that mindset. And it's just a place for growth. It's a place for the guests to hang out. It's a place for you to hang out and meet people. And just continue doing what we're doing here, which is, I think, giving people roadmaps of information to better modulate their life.
Yeah, Discord has been a wonderful place for me. It's a good place to build community via the internet if you're going to build community that way. And what else can I say? It's a perpetual good time chat room. We talk about Cruising with Steak on these intros a lot, and of course, most of the listeners here are probably from Gramerica. So I guess for the new listeners, I should probably put links to those Discord servers in our Discord servers. So if you do want to branch out and have a broader experience with Discord, that'll be there for you.
Yeah, we're all in the same ilk. Darren and Graham started this podcast. They did all the early interviews. Darren's still involved. And it's beautiful just to see that crossover behind the scenes as well. So yeah, especially if you're looking for other podcasts, join the Discord server and start hooking up. And the coolest thing is about all these is you literally can connect. If you send, Graham a message, you're going to talk to him. That's just how this works. We're a very large, small community. So it's a beautiful thing. No algos. We don't screw with you. There's no advertising pop in. We don't want you to buy underwear. This is value for about value. If you feel we're valuable, support us how you can. Tell us what you think of us. Write us a good review. Share the show with your friends. That's the most important. If I give somebody tools or allow them to improve their life in some way through contacting this podcast, then we are way ahead of the game. That's better than anything else we could do. And if you guys want to support the show and keep us going and, give us the ability to do more and release more and improve the fidelity of the show, you can always do that. Everything is in the show links or 13questionspodcast.com. Contact us at 13questionspodcast@gmail.com. And yeah, I'd love to hear from you. Just, at Adam and at bstrutme or you.
Yeah, amazing things can happen when people start talking, and Discord's one of those places that is available for you to do that. Talk with other people. Come and join us out. Come and join us. It'll be fun. And the other, I think Adam you touched on this a little bit, but if you guys want to support us, this is a value for value project show. So what that means is we're not, we don't have a paywall to get the bonus content. You just have to go into the Discord and you'll find a link there. And that's one of the things that I think is great about the format of how we're running things over here is value for value. I know that Grammarica does it, and I think that it's just the best way to build a grassroots community.
No, I think it's a beautiful way because it's what we're doing ourselves. I give everything I can to this, as much of my free time as I have between work, life, just everything going on. And I believe in it. And, we can only do so much with where we go and what we have. So, the more, and look, the more support we have, just encouragement. If you're listening, that's huge support. Just let us know. Come and say hi. If you can help us out with the hosting, amazing. But ultimately, we're here for you, and we just want to be here as much as possible. So yeah, it's a good thing.
Yeah, it is a good thing to be thankful for other things and aspects that we deal with on a daily basis in our lives. And something that we're trying to work out here is the gratitude segment. Hopefully we'll get a jingle at some point and make this a little bit more, I don't know, official.
Well, I like that you did this, and it's something I struggle with. I cannot tell you the amount of times I've said, F me today, or, F this, what am I doing? Just random stuff, but it's like, why am I saying that? That is like anti-gratitude. I'm like almost being, thankful for the bad and, wishing it upon myself instead of focusing on the good things in life. I had a delicious milkshake for lunch. That's something to, I don't know. I'm incredibly thankful for, we live in an incredible world where you can get something ice cold, super hot, freshly killed. You don't have to work. If I want to light a cigarette, I don't have to build and start a fire from scratch to do so. It's a blessed world, but we're still upset about getting stuck in traffic jams or, when something falls out of the refrigerator. So I'm thankful for all of those things that upset me because ultimately, it's my job to see the perspective that I have those things.
Yeah, that's kind of something that I was thinking about earlier this week is being thankful for the tough times that you come across. Like maybe the other day, maybe I don't know, personal story for my life. I was kind of struggling with, feeling down and depressed just because, life happens and, the weather changes and, you can't hardly see the sunlight. I don't know, just this time of year, a lot of people struggle with that type of thing. So, something that I was thinking about to kind of cheer myself up was that, well, at least I have, a roof over my head and I don't have to be out there and experiencing, the cold and the rain and the wind and all that. So, even just reminding yourself that, hey, if you're listening to this and you have a roof over your head, you have, food in your belly, just being thankful for simple things like that can really, brighten your day if you're having, a tough one.
Exactly. Seems simple, but imagining, yourself with no shelter, no food, no protection from the environment, from predators, that would make any situation incredibly more difficult. So, no matter where you're at, no matter how bad it is, unless you're in a torrential downpour surrounded by wolves, while being struck by lightning, you're good.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, I think it's appropriate to say that, I was just so, like I was saying before, that I'm thankful that Marty was able to come on and talk to us. I knew that he would say yes when I first reached out to him, but I don't know. Maybe I'm blowing it out of proportion, but it meant a lot to me. So I'm thankful that he was able to come on and speak to us.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to book the interview and run things for us, Bill. And well, I guess I'm going to add on to that gratitude that I'm thankful that you are now with 13 questions. It's I think this episode concisely will show exactly why it's great to have you on board.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So with that, guys, enjoy the interview.
All right, Marty Leeds on 13 questions.
So, Marty, you had a chance to look at the questions and everything, right? You're good to go?
Yeah.
All right. So why don't we get the ball rolling, gentlemen? What do you think?
Sounds like a plan, man.
All right. Marty, first question. What was the best advice ever given to you? Would you modify it at all today?
I would say the best advice ever given to me was by my mother, and that's to follow your heart. It's pretty much as simple as that. Because I think, I don't even know if she understood the depth or the weight of what she was telling me at the time, but my parents are pretty simple people. They weren't they weren't scholarly or deeply philosophical or anything like that. They just tried to raise some good kids, some good little shits like my brother and I. And so they just sort of left me with simple philosophies. Like one of them was sort of figure things out yourself, number one. It's like, I'm not going to give you all the answers. I'm not going to tell you what to do. You go figure it out. That was one of them. But and in doing that, my mother also said, follow your heart. And that ultimately led to, ultimately it led to religion and studying spirituality and that sort of stuff. But it also leads to morals, and I think that's the foundation upon which we work as human beings down on earth is we're steeped in moral law. That's what natural law really is all about. So, in short, it's follow your heart. And that actually was like very powerful when I actually got to study Egyptology and then found out that the crux of like sort of Egypt philosophical thought was the weighing of the heart ceremony. And that's where you would go at the end of your life before you cross the gates of death. You'd have to weigh your heart on the scales. And if your heart was lighter than a feather, then you'd get into the halls of the greater God, back to source or whatever. So that stuck with me for a long time. Still does. In fact, I have a little statue here that says follow your heart.
Awesome. Yeah. Like following the heart, that's kind of like following your intuition in a way, because I think when you're not doing something that, that's not driving with you, or you're not resonating with it, like there's a little voice inside that says, hey, maybe we should think about doing it this way, or, take a different path or whatnot. I don't know. Cause it helps in making decisions too, because I'm a guy that'll sit there and stew over like in indecision for forever.
Yeah.
And I basically learned that, you got to make a move, and the best way is to follow your heart, you follow your intuition. Am I right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. The other thing too about like following your heart is also it sort of trains you what your heart really is, because a lot of times like you may fall in love or think you're falling in love, but really it's just sort of like passion and lust and you wanting and projecting your own things onto somebody, and you realize no, you're just trying to fill your heart with what you think it really needs, as opposed to actually finding what's in the center of it. You know what I mean? So I can say that personally with like, as far as like my relationship with my wife is concerned, because there was a lot of times where I thought I was following my heart, but I really wasn't,
How did
So-
you narrow yourself into knowing that, the being able to know what your heart's direction is?
Well, I mean, questioning it a lot too, that's one of the things. It's always keeping, life's a mystery. So you always got to make sure that you're questioning a mystery in that sort of sense. But I think your heart tells you when you know something's not right. Like I could give you a million scientific reasons why you shouldn't wear masks. Like I could tell you, oh, you can get hypoxemia, you can get hypercapnia, blah 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 blah, this and that. There's psychological issues, but at the end of the day, it's like, no, that's in my heart. It says it's just not right. You know what I mean? So it's like your heart, when you get to the center of it, it's like there's just a truth there that doesn't necessarily need all this explanation and all this fluff and baggage. It's just kind of there. And I think when he was saying about there's a voice that's sort of telling you, almost like nagging at you, you got to follow that. Another example, let me give you another example. This is David Weiss would say this, right? So I'm about to have David Weiss on the show. He's Flat Earth podcast guy, right? He's always been longest time big truth seeker, right? And when Flat Earth was presented to him, at first he was like, no, that's ridiculous. He'd kick people off his page, said, no, we're not listening to that. But there was something in him that kept nagging at him. And that was the truth that was actually in his heart, that is like, no, it would be irresponsible of me as a truth seeker not to go into that and look into it and take it seriously and investigate it. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's follow your heart. That's what it's all about.
I like that nagging feeling, the thing that keeps picking at you.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's what it is anyway, right?
Yeah, I was reading a book on tarot the other day, and the Fool card just popped in my head because the image of the card has a guy, and there's this little white dog next to him, and the dog's like kind of behind him, nipping at his heels. I think that's supposed to be your intuition.
Well, then there's all the symbolism of the dog too, like the dog is unconditional love. What is that? Well, that's symbolic of the heart, of course, right there. You know what I mean? Dog. I mean, I did a whole lecture on the symbolism of a dog and stuff like that. I don't want to get into that, but yeah, that's it. The fool is a guy that thinks he knows everything. And on the tarot card, the fool's the guy. He's like walking down the mountain. He's all dressed, all glamorous, and he's got and the sun's at his back. He's not marching towards the sun. Sun's at his back. He's walking down the mountain. There's a cliff right there. He could fall off. The dog's barking at him. He's not, he's lost in his head. He's not following his heart. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's pretty poignant. Anyway.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Question number 2. What is the most important lesson you learned from your parents?
It would be that. I mean, I would that, like I said, combined with figure it out yourself. Like I remember my parents. There was in class we had. This was like a long time ago. I don't know what grade it was, or whatever. But we were talking about it was an election season or whatever. And we were talking about Democrats, Republicans, and they were asking the kids, what are you going to vote, or what would you vote if you could vote, that sort of thing. And I remember going home and asking my parents. I was like, well, what are you guys? And they refused to tell me. And they said, well, no, you figure it out. And how many parents would be like, no, we want to instill this upon you. No, you're going to be a Republican, or you're going to be a Democrat, things like that. And they were at least humble enough in their parenting to know it's like, no, you have to formulate a critically thinking mind for yourself. And if, and which in one sense, it's like you want to instill good, whatever, good politics in your kids and things like that. But you also want to, develop that imagination, develop that those critically thinking skills and things like that. And at least I think, once again, they were honest enough as parents that they didn't necessarily know what was right. And so they wanted to just, once again, put that in my lap and try to figure out themselves, because politics is a messy, freaking confusing business. And it is. So I would think that's probably the biggest. Yeah.
I love it. They didn't put you in shackles. They left your mind to wander free.
Well, I don't think they did that with my brother so much, because he was the older brother. So I think they were a little bit more strict on him. But then I think they sort of learned some lessons about that might have been maybe too much, or, whatever. I mean, the parents learn as much as you do about life. So it's all a learning process for them as well. So I think they were a little bit more strict on my brother. But then when it came to me, especially since I think that they probably understood when I was like younger, that I had a fairly already developed imagination, that I wasn't, I was sort of a shit kicking kid. You know what I mean? I was full of piss and vinegar. I was, kind of a smart ass, and, could think for myself, even as a younger man or boy, whatever. So I think they understood that in me, and so they just sort of like, well, okay, well, you figure it out, So.
Yeah, I love it whenever anybody's answer is thinking for themselves, learning how to think, not learning just what to think, like not letting other people tell you like what your opinion should be or whatnot.
Yeah, so. It goes back to the old proverb of, teaching a man to fish. It's the same thing. I mean, thoughts are, we don't get enough education on how to think, or, what you can think. We get a lot of restrictions on what you shouldn't think.
That's actually a huge one with my parents, and like saying basically figure it out yourself, is because that there was early in me, it was like, okay, well, because they didn't, and this goes to just not just, in a political spectrum, also like religiously, because they didn't say, oh no, you're going to be a Catholic, or take me to church every Sunday and say, you have to believe in this. They basically just said, figure it out. So in one sense that left me off in, that sent me off into a world of just like, well, what the hell is this place? But it also gave me a freedom to be like, okay, well, I can use my own mind and look at all this stuff and then decide for myself if it's bullshit or not. And of course, that took many, many years to find out, what is true, what's not. And of course, we're still on that journey. But you know what I mean? Like, and so those were all very, very positive things, I would, I think, ultimately. You shouldn't have to force a belief in God in somebody is a perfect example. God is real. Prove it. That was my attitude. I mean, I got kicked out of CCD class. Seriously. I was one of those kids that was just like, they're like, oh, I went to CCD class, my friend, Gerard Ferris, the bass player in my old band. And, I started asking questions that you're not supposed to ask. And so they're like, well, you're just kind of causing a ruckus. You got to get out of here. It's like, no, like you're telling me to believe something. Why? And needless to, I mean, it's so interesting now that I'm full circle. I'm actually back in that CCD class, if you will. I'm like with the Bible, like, which is crazy, but it's just, that's how it works, I guess. So.
Yeah. And I think being a part of being able to think for yourself, part of that process is gathering information. And that's kind of what we're trying to do on this show, is getting as much conversation and input from as many different people as possible, so we can have this pool of wealth in order to draw upon. So I think that that ties in perfectly to what we're trying to do here, right?
We almost have, I mean, I'll say this, like people like ourselves or this generation almost have a responsibility to do that, just because this has never, at least as far as we know, never been offered to humanity before, where that we can connect and do research. And, we just have so many resources available at our fingertips. And it's almost like irresponsible of us not to go and at least try to figure out all these questions that we've had over the years that we now have access. I mean, we have a Library of Alexandria at our fingertips, and to not utilize and access it as we should to learn as much as we can, I think would be remiss, So.
Yeah. A person that doesn't read is no different than a person who can't. So, I mean, the information is there.
Yeah. That's a great way to say it. Yeah. Sure.
We have a responsibility to do that. So yeah, that's great. All right. Question 3. What book has been the most influential on your life and why?
Once Upon a Potty. I read that when I was no kidding. Well, I mean, you could say the Holy Bible, but that's an easy answer, just because that's always a source of mystery and study, and there's just so much in there that I haven't even touched yet. Blah 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 blah. Right? But that's an easy answer. So, I mean, I would answer with honestly, like James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake. I would say it was probably the one book that absolutely changed how I looked at writing, how I looked at language, how I looked at literature, how I looked at lots and lots of things. So
that was Finnegan's Way by James Joyce.
Finnegan's Wake by James Joyce. It's
Wig. Okay.
Yeah, Wig. So James Joyce is really famous authors. Like, I mean, he's like pretty much one of the most famous like Irish authors, right? In fact, they still have a day that they celebrate every year. It's a holiday in Dublin or across Ireland, and it's called the Bloom's Holiday. I forget what it's called, but it's celebrating a character in one of James Joyce's books. The book is called Ulysses, and that book is all about this character. I forget what his name. I want to say Orlando Bloom, but it's not Orlando. It's something Bloom. Leopold Bloom. Leopold Bloom is the name. And Leopold Bloom basically tried to square the circle and try to win money doing it, blah, 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 blah. But it's this really, really famous work of literature. And so they still celebrate. So anyway, the other book that he wrote that's really, really famous is Finnegan's Wake. And Finnegan's Wake is this book that it's essentially not readable. It's essentially, you can't extract any sort of linear continuity or linear narrative or storyline from the thing at all. And it's a mashup of language and phonology and it's just a mess in one sense. But what you realize what he was doing in the book was actually trying to train your mind to help you understand just the true mystical import of language. Okay. So what Finnegan's Wake forced you to do was literally sound out syllables. So he would mash up words. So like the opening line of Finnegan's Wake is, river run past even Adams from swerve of shore to bend of bay, brings us by a commodious of vicus of recirculation back to Howth Castle, where Tristan by Lord of Moor, from o'er the short sea, blah, 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 blah. Like, you have no idea what I just said, right? Well, the reader doesn't even know what they just read. But what he's making you do is look at every single word and realize that language is like, it's more than just words on a page. It's symbolism, it's phonology, you see etymology is a huge part of it. There's poetry behind every single prominent language, I would say, out there. He also, one of the big things that he did was make you realize that, or like make me realize how intimately connected religions are to the actual language. So for instance, how deeply connected Islam is to Farsi, or, that sort of thing, or how deeply connected Hebrew, Judaism is to Hebrew, blah, 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 blah. And so that was one of the things that led me to realize how tied Christianity is to our English language. So that was a long answer, but.
No, that was great, because one of the things that you kind of helped me realize, Marty, was that you don't have to learn Hebrew or ancient Greek or old dead languages to glean meaning out of the Bible, or out of even just the our the language that we use today, our English alphabet. I mean, our language is full of hidden truths and all that type of stuff in there. So I think that's great.
That I probably you said it better than I could have, because that's really one of the things that actually helped me understand that our language is still has the mysteries in it. A lot of people be like, oh, those ancient Greeks, they used to think that their alphabet was divine, and it's like, no. The modern day contemporary us have a language that's divine. And so that was one of the things, and that's one of the things that he sort of encoded in, to me anyway. That's when like I said, what I gleaned from it is just like, look, the power of language. And then of course when you get into like a conspiratorial aspect of this gets into spell binding, spell casting, seances, there's sentences and rites and writing and blah, 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 blah. We know all that, so yeah.
Yeah, I'm constantly amazed at the new words. It was about a week ago, I realized that breakfast is breaking fast. And I'm like, well, you have, eating windows. It's becoming a big thing for health. I'm like, but in the past, they knew that it was a healthy daily thing. And if you have breakfast, you're breaking that. I'm like, simple wisdom, encoded in something that I just thought was a unique word unto itself.
And our language, and especially all the very, very prominent languages that have been established for a long time, including everything from like German to French to blah, 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 right? There's deep mysticism there. And every single word has, to me, especially like very, very substantiated words, things that are foundational within our languages, things that you use all the time, even words like God, Jesus Christ, heaven, hell, heaven, earth, all of like star, all of those very prominent words are absolutely encoded, with not only mathematical knowledge, but things like you're saying, oh no, there's a simple bit of knowledge there. No, you're breaking the fast. You run fast for 8 hours when you're sleeping. You just broke that.
That's interesting. That kind of so that's weird because, it's making me think that when you lose etymology, whether purposeful or just through, cultural shifts in time, I mean, you're losing like knowledge, deep knowledge, because it's not just words. It's, it's like a fabric. That's pretty cool. I haven't thought about it that way before.
It's true too, because you don't even have to like manipulate the language itself. All you have to do is manipulate how language is used to spellbind a populace, right? And just for instance, you don't have to manipulate the definition of science. All you have to do is convince people that science fiction is science, and then say, well, we're doing what this definition is right here. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's like, oh yeah, that's just like now we've got the COVID-19 and all the science. There's no science there. You look at the definition of science, there's nothing fulfilled in that definition whatsoever. But you've convinced literally millions upon millions upon millions of people just by telling, not having to manipulate the language, not having to create new words, that sort of stuff, just by telling them one thing. It's amazing. It's amazing. That's one of the powers of language. Then you get to understand how powerful language is, and then you see that when you actually get to definitions and etymology and things like that, you can cut right through the bullshit. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When you actually understand language, it's like, oh no, this doesn't make any sense at all because here's the definition, here's the word. You're not fulfilling it at all. It's that kind of thing.
Well, you're finding the real meaning of the word, not the perceived meaning that continually gets football kicked and can kicked into something else.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, perfectly said.
Yeah, I love that you brought up the duality of language. That the attention behind it. It can be used for good, or it can be used for for bad purposes. And I feel like that is what I feel like as a service to everybody else offering the show is using the internet for a light purpose as opposed to a dark purpose, because the internet is also duality, and the what am I trying to say here, Adam? Our show is called 13 Questions, and 13 is also a number of duality, which I know Marty has talked about before too. So yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, duality.
Oh, I was going to say something about that. Yeah, when you understand the power of language, how it can be used to manipulate. But if you, how manipulate masses of people, mind spell, all that sort of thing. But if you understand the power of language, how you can cut through the BS, look at social distancing.
Yeah.
It's telling you to do something that is literally a linguistic non sequitur. Doesn't make any sense. How do you social and come together and distance? On, off. Do that. That doesn't make any sense. Do you want the light on or off? On, off.
Well, change the definition of the word. Socializing becomes the opposite.
Yeah, well, social comes together, distance, stay apart. How do you come together to stay apart?
Yeah.
I mean, if that, once again, and of course, once again, we were told all this stuff too. Like, I mean, it's so funny because I always tell people, like, don't you guys remember, weren't we required to read George Orwell's Animal Farm in 1984 in school? At least a bunch of people I know were. They literally said, this is how we're going to do it. And here it is. And all you have to do is understand language a little bit, because those two words don't go together at all. It doesn't make sense.
Well, there's a reason why Orwell's works have been systematically removed from the teaching curriculum in schools in America. I remember when I have a 1984 tattoo. It was huge. That was the most influential book on me when I was a teen. And yeah, when I followed it, when I started to see it disappear in Florida and other states, I was like, that's a shame, because it's a window into today.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So books are good. Read them.
Yes.
All right. Question number 4. What daily habits or rituals do you have?
I mean, none really. I mean, smoke weed, drink coffee. I don't really have daily rituals other than to keep going. I would say the thing that I've always been ritualistic about, maybe not ritualistic about, but I've always done is always had, how do I say this? Like multiple things going on the burners. You know, like I would always have something on the, you know what I mean? Something cooking. If one thing was just about half done, I'd get something else going. You know, I just always kept moving and would never allow myself, you know, I would allow myself some relaxed time, but always keep moving and keep going on to the next thing, especially as like a creative person, because you have to stay inspired in order to inspire. So that means you have to be reading something, you have to be researching something, you have to be writing the next song, you have to have the next record in the queue, you have to be working on the next lecture, you have to be thinking about the next book, you have to be blah, 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 blah. And that's how you stay inspired, which also means that you're also taking in a lot of information and a lot of energy and that sort of stuff from other people, which, you know, which allows you to become, well, just more holistic, smarter, well-read, more, you know, all of that sort of stuff. So that would be like my daily ritual. It'd just be to keep something going. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, that's an awesome piece of advice especially for somebody that maybe is stuck in a 9-to-5 job and maybe their routine is just, you know, get up, go to work, go home, go to sleep, and repeat the next day. Maybe throw in something a little extra to where you can, you know, be creative or be inspired.
yes. And for even creative people too, a lot of things, what I found out is that they'll get stuck on a project. Like they'll just work on one project and they'll be like a perfectionist or something like that. And so they'll never get it finished or whatever it is. And you can't think like that. You got to be like, this is the project I'm doing right now, but I've also got something that I'm thinking ahead. And if I'm not trying to move towards that next thing, then I'm just stagnant. You know what I mean? It's a way to keep you going, to keep you producing things. Do you know what I'm saying? To keep that fire.
Right.
Oh yeah, the input is
object
fuel,
emotion.
and if you don't have the fuel coming in, you don't have the same output. You're running on fumes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like inertia. An object in motion wants to stay in motion. So keep on moving. Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
All right. Question 5. If I were to ask your best friend, what is the one thing they would say you need to work on the most? What is it and why?
Oh man, I don't know about this one, dude. Because I don't know what, depending on
Which friend?
I don't. Yeah, who I consider my best friend. Well, I would say this. Well, okay, I'll say this. My wife told me this the other day. She said that if I could get my anger under control, I'd probably be unstoppable. And I'm like, what the fuck? Shut up. God damn. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean, I can fly off the handle a little bit, you know? And so I would say that I would even say probably some of my other friends would let, you know, just because I'm very zen, I'm very loving and caring, things like that, but I still have that sort of Irish shit kicker warrior sort of spirit in me. And whenever I see an injustice, I'm like, oh no, you know, that kind of thing. And that can lead to bursts of, you know, unnecessary, you know, that kind of thing. So
Enthusiasm.
I would say that's probably my biggest issue. I got a little Mark Passio in me, is what I'm saying. You know, every once in a while, I let that gets out. Anyway.
Question 6. What are you most curious about?
One of the things I'm most curious about is how, because I believe in reincarnation and I believe in reconnection with people and that you've met here and things like that. Basically, how that works. You know, like what happens when you die if you don't get to the other side. I don't believe people are cast into hell for eternity and things like that. I believe that there's always like this loving aspect of God and things like that. What's the process of like coming back into creation how is the soul put back into a body? How does God decide where that spirit is going to go? I'm curious about that, and I hope that's one of the things, if you cross the gates of death, you get to know, if that's even how it works. So there's that, but
could be a concept that's far beyond our understanding of this world.
I would assume, right?
You would hope. I'd hope that the universe has some answers that are so amazing that my brain isn't capable yet of understanding. It means that I have a place to go.
That's essentially God, because we can get intimations of God. We can see that there's intelligence in creation, but can you ever understand could you ever stand outside of God and look at God and just gaze on him? No, you couldn't do that, because it'd just be too awesome. You'd be drawn into the amazing power there. You'd just be like sucked into its greater power, that sort of thing. So I definitely realized that, but I just wonder, because I've had some people that have talked about things and dreams and things like that of people and where they were in the afterlife. And I don't know. It just makes me curious,
Yeah, well, it's an ineffable, truly is ineffable. Like what happens after death, or trying to explain God, or even thinking about the concept of nothingness. Like as soon as you even say nothingness, you have a label to something, and then it can no longer be nothing. So,
yep.
Things like that are ineffable.
These are like the foundations of philosophical thought too, So.
Yeah. How can you not be curious about that? Question 7. What was the most embarrassing or humbling experience of your life?
Shit, I don't know, man. I don't know. That's a tough one. Well, actually, I'll say this. This is going to sound cheesy, but one of the most humbling experiences of my life was meeting my wife, because I was at an age where I was still like fairly like becoming sort of like spiritually advanced, at least in my own world, and with that, some ego was popping up that was not necessary, and which can always become disastrous and can, drive a good man off course. And so I think my wife came in and forced me to see things about myself that I knew but didn't really want to deal with. And she brought them out, and she didn't it wasn't like antagonistic or anything like that. And so I could have responded very like, well, I don't want to do this, blah, blah, blah. But I couldn't, because of how it's presented, so I had to like sort of humble myself and be like, all right, well, here I thought I was, doing better than I was, but no, there was this and this and this and this thing over here that I had to work on. And so I'd say that's probably the best answer to that.
I love that answer, because and in the end, it allowed you to grow, dealing with the ego and realizing whatever that issue was needed to be dealt with in a positive light. And she helped you find the way. I think that's beautiful.
It was. I mean, to me, it also it made me realize like how important it is to find like that other partner for like true like spiritual growth. Maybe, I don't know. Or maybe I just needed to find it in my life. I don't know. But I don't think I wouldn't be where I am without her.
Yeah. Well, other people have, other pieces and information and ways of doing things that play off you and play well and change who you are, change your behavior, change your view of the world. So it's Darren talks about this a lot, like the relationship that anybody has is in between them. I have my ideas in my head, you have your ideas in your head, but ultimately in between us, we come together, we have this experience, and it's something else. That thing there is unique and different from us. And so when you find like the right person, like that thing in between becomes something, very unique. And, I find that beautiful that, you were able to grow from your wife, and I can only imagine that she would say the same.
Yeah, she would for sure. Because I think I've done the same for her.
It's probably not the same as like humbling or whatever, but there was some things like I know for like as far as conspiracies and looking into things in the world, she had a lot of the doors open, and I just came along to start pushing her through doors, So that's good. But I mean, in a sense though, I also learned this lesson being in a band too. What you were just saying about there's the relationship, it's between the two people. It's not one or the other. It's the thing that happens between. You see this in songwriting. Like I can write a good song here and there every once in a while, but the best songs I think I ever participated in were ones that I was making with other people, or when I was playing in a band, because there's something that grows between the talents and the inspiration and the energy between two people. That's why, you can go and listen to Brian May play guitar, but when Brian May plays with Freddie fucking Mercury, then they become Queen and it's something else. You know what I mean? And so it's that kind of thing.
Well said. Perfect example.
Yeah.
All right. Question 8. What is your greatest fear? How did you overcome it?
Well, there you go. I can't believe I'm saying all this stuff about my wife, but commitment, fear, commitment, which is, as I'm coming to find, one of men's biggest fears. At least that I've seen. Jennifer, one of Jennifer's friends, she's dating right now, I think early 30s or mid 30s or something like that, and really wants to find a good guy. And she finds these guys and they're like, they fall in love with her or whatever. And it goes well for a while. And then they sort of split. And she's had this happen time and time again, and so she asked me, and she's a good person. She's like really good to be around. She should be able to find a good dude, whatever. And I'm like, chances are the majority of the guys, because I've been in this position, they're afraid of commitment. It's why guys don't want to rush into marriage. It's why guys will fall apart in relationships. It's why guys cheat, because they are afraid of that commitment. And I was for the longest time. And then, like I said, when I found Jennifer, it was like, okay, now something I was afraid of, I was like, I was going to go, dive head first into. And so that was a lot of fear. So overcoming it, I guess, was getting married and upholding my vows,
Beautiful. Yeah, commitment. I guess that is something that I never really thought about, males having a specific trouble with that, but it makes sense with the whole marriage thing. I think, I don't know, something that popped in my head was after marriage. I don't know if I want to say this. I don't know. The security of the female is kind of like taken care of, while the freedom, the male's freedom is like, I don't know, there's like a trade-off there that makes any sense. But yeah, commitment. That's a good one.
Well, plus it's a big unknown as well too, because that takes responsibility, and it takes like upholding your end of the bargain, being upstanding. Well, I mean, in one sense, it's an emotional contract and a spiritual contract that you make with somebody, and so you have to uphold that end of the bargain, and so there's like, that's a responsibility. Especially a lot of young men, I don't think they want to bear that responsibility. They want to go and party and drink beers, whatever the hell it is, And it's like, it's just interesting because that's some of the most rewarding shit that you'll ever get in life.
It is, but it's scary, and especially for a young person, because you change so much. You can see yourself changing. You're going to become a different person. Now you have to worry about the person you're becoming and how that's compatible. You don't have to worry about that, but that becomes the crux of the problem, and it's a big pickle.
It's actually a problem I'm seeing a lot nowadays with people that are like, you see people that are waking up, they've gone through some sort of transition where it's spiritual, conspiracies, whatever it is, that are sort of waking up, and then their significant other isn't, or at least on the same rate. And then they share a child together, stuff like that. So, I don't know. I don't give advice, but for me, it's like, I'm just glad that I knew who I was when I decided to make that commitment, because a lot of people don't. And then they get into life and they're like, oh, I'm actually not that. And now I'm in all of these, I have all of these relationships that I'm responsible for. And
I can imagine too, if you get to the point where your worldview is cracked or changed in a way that, you didn't see it, but now it's clear. Well, now relationships could be scary too, because, by proxy, that comfort, that thing that you are supposed to, be protected by, or you find comfort in, could that one also be, a complete farce? My whole world was a farce. Why not this relationship within it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's craziness.
It's pretty crazy, because a lot of this stuff, I don't think these were issues that people had in the 60s. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, obviously they did, but it's a lot more now. Like, even me, I was in an 11-year relationship, and one of the main reasons it ended is because I was waking up. She wasn't, and so that was clearly showed that we had complete different viewpoints in life, because I wanted to know what was going on, and she didn't really give a shit, So I could say that affected me anyway.
Yeah, I think that speaks to the gravity of making a commitment too, which what it sounds like was really on your mind before you made your commitments was, the seriousness of that undertaking, no matter what commitment it is, no matter, marriage, or, taking another type of oath, or vows, or whatnot. But, when you commit to something that takes, that's a serious act, and it's not something to be taken lightly. And I think that maybe a lot of the people around today don't really, have that perspective.
Mm-hmm. It was even so much as starting a business too. It wasn't just the like my wife or anything, because there was several times where I could have started a business in a town and done really well. I would, like, my business would have been successful just because I knew everybody there. I was really good at what I did. I could have got a building cheap. I had friends there that would have helped me, family there would have helped me, stuff like that. Why didn't I? Well, I had a different calling in life, but one of the main reasons was I didn't want to commit to it. I was like, well, then I'm stuck doing that. What if I don't want to do it? And then I got to get out of this contract, and I got to do this and this and this, so, but anywho.
Yeah, commitments take a lot of time. All right. Question 9. What quality do you most admire in a man? Why?
Like a holistic, how do you say that?
Well-rounded?
Yeah, well-rounded. I should be saying that. I'm a freaking geometrician. Yeah, well-rounded. I like I don't want to say Renaissance men, but people that try to be Renaissance men. Like, people think men are like, I'm the burly man, I take care of shit, testosterone ridden, I fucking like trucks and blah 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 blah. You need that aspect of manhood, being like, you have to be sort of the warrior, the protector. Like, for instance, when I went, did I go to Home Depot and get the 4x4s and the 2x4s, or to Jennifer? I did that, because that's what a man should do. So it's to fulfill that role in that sort of sense, right? But it's also to not lose the poetry, it's in life. It's not to lose what am I trying to say here? That mysticism, the care, the poetic sense, the domestic sense, that sort of thing, the motherly sense, all of those sorts of things. I think my heroes are usually guys that were like polymaths or whatever, that did everything from write poetry and prose to go out and chop brick and wood. They were as much interested in the works of Shakespeare as they were as understanding law. Do you know what I mean? And so that's the thing that I most respect out of a man. What the one quality is, to have many qualities,
So it sounds like being able to balance the divine feminine with the divine masculine within your being, as a whole.
That's exactly it.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. And when
Yeah.
you find mastery in one thing, there's patterns or lessons, or there's ways to find mastery in other things easier. You find, it's kind of like, swimming. Once you figured out where the currents are, you can navigate the waters much better.
Yes, it's a learning, and then also a level of like self-confidence too, because there's a lot of men out there that would be like, you're talking about like reading poetry or writing poetry or something like that. There's a lot of men out there that be like, that's totally baggy going up and to speak poetry or something like that. And to me, that's not like a real man. It's like, no, you'd be so completely confident going up and reading poetry as you would being a volunteer in the fire department. You know what I'm saying? Like that to me is divine masculine, divine feminine is the perfect way to say it. Yeah.
Speaking of poetry reading, I think we can kind of extrapolate that to the arts in general, especially if you're like a musician or something. And I just think it's funny how it just seems to be a lot of the theater kids in school get bashed on because they're nerdy and they're outcasts or whatnot. But then like these same kids that are doing the bashing, they also have role models that are actors and musicians, and they have to have these skills that they're poking fun at because they're seen as a less masculine type of reading poetry.
It's the one thing that's like when they call the guys like modern guys cucks or whatever. It's like sort of that. It's like cucks, like, okay, they get some of the feminine aspect, right? Where they're a little bit more compassionate and caring and softer, and they don't mind crying or whatever. But then they lack this other part of the responsibility that you have to be in society as a man, is to be the warrior and to stand up and to be the protector and father, all that sort of stuff. And so, yeah, to me, it's like you need that balance. So it's the kids that get picked on in class and stuff like that. I probably would have been that kid if I wouldn't have made friends with everybody. So I did my best to be like try to hang with everybody so I wouldn't get because I was sort of an outcast in that sort of sense. But
I love it. Question 10. Who were / are your role models and why?
I mean, I don't know if I have any like direct role models, because it's like to be the grand archetype of Christ, right? Because that's like to fulfill the greatest archetype you could possibly fulfill, the cross you want to bear, that sort of thing. I would say that because that's probably the direct answer. But like, I would say there was people that were actually like really influential in my life that were role models at a young age that probably fulfilled naturally. They fulfilled the what I want to say, the position or whatever of helping me initiate into society as a man. Like we have a lot of those rites of passages and things like that have sort of been sucked out of our society, that are completely gone. And there was a guy that I grew up with named Kurt Elmer, and I think he sort of helped me become a man in a sort of sense, that was initiated me into manhood without ever doing all the theater and the rituals and stuff like that. He was influential because he basically taught me a bunch of the skills that I ended up using for up till now. And that was like playing guitar. He was my guitar teacher. And so I would go to when I was like 15 years old, went to his place, and he was a big like 80s rock guy. So he was into all the, all the 80s, all the white bands, like the Great White and White Lion and White Snake and all those bands, right? So I ended up playing it, like subbing in his band. So he taught me guitar. He taught me about amps. He taught me how to tune guitars, how to, all that sort of shit. And then he actually taught me, I ended up working for him, and he taught me how to do signs. So he taught me how to, and then to do everything from like drills and table saws and paint things and build freaking decks and all that sort of shit. So all of those things that you're supposed to learn as a young man. My dad taught me a lot of that stuff too, but this guy, Kurt Elmer, sort of did it as well. And so a lot of those things that I think you need to learn as a young man, that a lot of young men don't, he actually did. And that was like skills of music, learning how to be creative, and then learning how to actually do physical labor, construction, that sort of stuff. So
he a true teacher. He taught you how to make things in all aspects of life.
Yeah, and I don't think he had a damn clue. He just thought he was just, being my guitar teacher and then giving me a summer job.
So
Really,
he was also a true guru, right?
which is true. Yeah, and so I don't even. It's funny because you don't even realize like how influential you can be in people's lives in that sort of sense. You know what I mean? Like he was just paying me $14 an hour to paint. Throw acetone on some shit and paint some stuff.
But see, what's beautiful about that, right? You said he's a huge metalhead, loves metal, loves guitar. He's bringing you into his world. So it's a very selfish thing, but still he ends up being this massive teacher just by like truly being himself. That's amazing.
And sort of doing the same sort of thing that my parents did too. Sort of just let me go. Like when I worked for him, he wasn't micromanaging and shit like that. He just knew that I had a good head on my shoulder. He gave me good direction, said, here's how you do the shit. Go do it, And the other thing is that the place that this is a long story, but whatever I'm telling you. The place I used to work, Kurt Elmer, he played in this band. Where the drummer was the guy that actually owned the business as well, part owner, was the drummer for the Georgia Satellites. So I don't know if you know that band from the 80s, like, don't hand me no lies and keep your hands to yourself. You know that song, right?
Yep.
He was the drummer for that band. So they were all musicians. And so we had this big warehouse that we did signs and t-shirts and all this other shit, right? And so they had this whole area upstairs that had like drum kits and big old freaking guitar amps. And so I could just go up there. It was like a playground. So not only did I learn to play guitar up there, I watched all these like great musicians come through there. I learned to play drums and, so it was, smoking joints and drinking beer and doing all that crazy shit. And he was, just kind of gave me the reins to do all that stuff, which was extremely helpful, so anyway.
Yeah, I love that initiation into manhood was part of your answer, and that you were able to incorporate that into this thought, because that's kind of what I'm hoping that this show can help people with, help other men that are, struggling or looking for, a path, and being able to learn from hearing all these guests and from us, from you. So I think that's awesome that you mentioned that.
I'm about to do a live stream on rites of passage, because I've been thinking a lot about it lately, how we don't have it in society anymore. And at least specific ones to turn a man, young boy, be like, okay, now you're responsible for yourself. Now you're responsible for not only yourself, but the, community at large, and blah, 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 blah. Right. And I've been thinking a lot about that, and about how essentially our society right now is children raising children. And one of the things that they're doing through like Netflix and the propaganda of television shows and stuff like that is that now you see that they're having the children telling the adults what to do. So not only have they got children to raise children, now those children are telling the children that are the adults what to do. And it's just like, Jesus Christ.
Do you think it's a confidence thing?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just asking if you thought it was a confidence thing, that, this rites of passage is, a way for you to understand that you can overcome what you think is the impossible, an incredibly difficult task, and you can do it, which means that now you're an adult. You don't think you can do this. You can. Like, is it that kind? Because that's what, like, I think that's what, like, I missed. I got a lot of that from scouting, but it wasn't hardcore, if you will.
Well, it's one of the things that basically tells you that now you are to be responsible. It's no longer that your parents are there to protect you. Now
it's in your hands.
Now this is on your shoulders, and now your actions will have direct consequences. And so now you're not, like I said, now you're not only responsible for yourself or the children that you're going to have, but also responsible for your community. Because not only is it like, oh, you're the man. Well, guess what? Sometimes when the river's raising, the man is going to have to be there to make sure the sandbags are there, right? So little Bobby, you're going to be grabbing the sandbags now, aren't you? Yep. It's that kind of thing that we don't have in our society anymore. And we have children raising children. They're not, once again, having the children telling the parents what to do now. It's crazy.
I'm going to be thinking about this a lot now.
Jennifer and I have been thinking about a lot the last month, and how absolutely important it is. And so that's one of the live streams I'm doing soon here. So.
Yeah. Do you think that initiation has anything to do with giving the initiate an experience of triumphing over adversity?
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of different reasons. There's tons of different like initiatory ceremonies. There's a whole spectrum of them. We're undergoing one right now in society with the whole COVID-19 thing, hence the masks. We're undergoing an initiatory ceremony right now. It's a satanic one, I would say, clearly. So there's that. But then there's the initiatory ceremonies of marriage is one, right? So you go and you at the end you're a changed being. You took a vow. You were initiated into this new stance in life in which you have responsibility for your partner, and that's one that you're exclaiming before your family and God that you're gonna uphold till death. So that's an initiatory ceremony. So the absolutely what to your question is that can one of them be any way to overcome something? Yes. In fact, I think it's important that we have those there to let those young boys know or whatever, that it's like now, you overcame all those hurdles, just like in Scouts, Order of the Arrow, right? In order to get into the traditional tap out ceremony and shit like they used to do, right? Eagle Scout, well, you had to earn your merit badges, didn't you? That thing had to be freaking decorated. And so that's what it's like, oh, look, now you did all that. Congratulations. Now you step up. And that sets a precedent for a young man. It's like, oh, I work. And then I get, and it brings me up in society and it makes me a better person. I'm a man and all of that sort of thing.
There is a reason why just being an Eagles, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, there's a reason why being an Eagle Scout is such a high standard, something you put on a resume that when you meet Eagle Scouts, they're a different caliber of person. So, I mean, being in Scouts, it was always, I don't know, they had a different way about them.
Mm-hmm. And when you have those sorts of things in society too, it gives young men like sort of models or whatever, which you always need, because if if a role model or whatever wouldn't have been Kurt Elmer, would have been some guy that's just fucking smoking cigarettes all day and working down at the shop and just like, this is what we do now. That might have been me. That might have been what that I might be just, working at a bar somewhere, whatever it is, and not doing some of the things that I do. So they're important roles,
All right. Question 11. What institution of society or structural aspect of modern life would you change given the chance?
Well, full government like a clean sweep of the government. Basically, a clean sweep of every administration, service, agency, and aspect of the government. Everyone's fired, and we have new elections. That's what I would do.
Term limits, maybe.
Everyone's fired.
No, everyone's fired.
Like literally fired. President, House of Representative people, literally everyone's fired, and we start the government again.
You just got to flush the
everything's
toilet.
Still on state. Flush the toilet. Cover the house, smoke bomb the house, get all the cockroaches out or termites out, get back in the house.
We need to tent America.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And audit everything. Audit the Fed. Of course, get rid of the Federal Reserve, but audit Fed, audit NASA, go in and find out everything about the CIA and the FBI, since both of those organizations are completely illegal. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I think most people would probably agree with your answer, but I guess the devil is in the details and how to reorganize after it's everybody's gone. Like who's to say who's in charge? Like that aspect of it is interesting to think about.
So this is the thing: everyone's fired, but the foundation's still there. So somebody's still going to be president. Somebody's still going to be vice president. We still need 9 Supreme Court justices, and we still need judges. We still need that sort of thing. But because there's so much corruption and we have zero trust in government anymore, we literally need to fire everybody, go in and find out who is corrupt, who's been the criminal, and then start from there. It sounds like a big thing. It's like, oh, we could never do that. But if you started at the local level, actually, that's where you would start. You start local here and you find out, oh,
this county over here has found out its corruption, and it can link to this county over here. We can already expose this, and that's how you start allowing the bricks to fall. That's the only way, like I said, the only way that you could fix the situation we're in right now, because the people have completely lost, at least any halfway intelligent person has completely lost faith in all of these institutions, the media, the government, taxes, Federal Reserve, the monetary system, zero trust in any of it. So if we're going to resuscitate it at all, we literally have to get all of the disease out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're not going to hear any arguments from me.
I don't know if it's possible or feasible, that's for sure, but I don't know. But this ain't working, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
All right, question 12. What is the most courageous thing you have ever done in your life or have seen?
That I've ever done?
Or
that
seen.
I've done?
Or seen. Either, yeah. Seen or done.
Oh, I don't know. I guess I don't think of things. I can't think of anything like offhand that's courageous, like specific things. But I think that people's general viewpoint and how they live life can be a life of righteousness. And I guess maybe there's some courageous aspect of that. I just think, in other words, like truth seekers, I think are courageous because a lot of times it depends, especially if you deal with a lot of truth, like if you're into false flags, you're into, or whatever you're into, if you're into arguing flat earth, you're into this and this and this, you come up against a lot of heat, all sorts, like when I was doing the Wolfgang Halbig stuff and promoting that documentary. And so, there was a ton of shit that happened behind the scene, guys, that someday I'll tell you. But it was just, I did it it was a documentary I did for free that I spent a month and a half of my life diligently working on, put it out, and holy shit, did I get some, backlash from that. Things behind the scenes you would never think. Someday I'm going to tell that story. But anyway.
But it means that, you did important work. I mean, if you don't get a reaction, then it's a tiny rock in the water.
Yes, and there's so many people out there that are on that quest, like for lack of a better term, truth seekers, whatever, that deal with a lot of that shit behind the scenes, and they still maintain what they're doing. They keep moving ahead. They find a different platform if they're kicked off. If they say you can't talk about that, they say fuck you, I'm talking about that, and that to me is courageous. So when I see people like that, like I see like David Weiss doing this for 10 years now, that's courage. You have to have courage to keep going,
Well, he has a reason because he sees it flash before him. It's like, well, what are the consequences? All right, he found his battle and he's got an active opponent. That's what I love about, it's one of the weird things about the universe. Like if they try to control you, they just being whatever situation, that act of doing that is a fuel for anything you could do. If there's no reaction, 10 years of focusing on one subject, it just seems kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. I just think there's a lot of, I guess like I said, it's not even like courageous. It's almost just like righteous. It's just like the right thing to do. So I think it's awesome when you find people that are doing the right thing to do and they're just doing it. And it's like, well, what else am I going to do? The not right thing.
Yeah.
So that is courageous, if you will. Right.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's funny once you figure out that something is amiss and you have the capability to communicate to other people, it almost becomes your responsibility to do so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
it's just like that line from, I think of Thomas Jefferson or something, whatever. But it's like, if the law is unjust, you have not only the right to disobey it, but the responsibility to do so. It's something like that,
Mm-hmm. Exactly. All right. Question 13. What does it mean to be a man in today's world?
Well, to bring manhood back. I mean, it's so sad. And as when I said manhood, it's referencing the response I gave earlier,
is to bring all aspects of manhood back. That's it. Taking responsibility for yourself, standing up for what's right, working, staying, making sure that you're earning everything that you have, all of those sorts of things. But it's basically just trying to model yourself and being as moral as you possibly can, standing up for what's right, fighting the battles that are worth fighting and stepping away from the ones that are not.
Yeah, personal responsibility. I love that, because that's the exact opposite of playing the victim all the time.
Well, that's what they're teaching everybody too. Everyone's a victim. You're a victim of something. Unless you're white, then you're just. But they're teaching victimhood, so be the victor.
I love it. I love that. They're teaching victimhood, so be the victor. That's a good phrase.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was the end of the 13 questions, and that feed will be available on for free. All of our stuff is for free. This one will just be released on the main. I guess, Matt, Adam, how does that work? It gets released on the main platforms, and then they have to go to Discord to get the bonus content.
Yeah, we have 2 Libsyn feeds. So there's one that's out there and freely shared. The other one, free to everybody as they want it. Just drop into the Discord, say hello. You don't actually even have to say hello, but you'll get a link in there. If one's not automatically delivered, we should have a bot to set that up for you. But if not, just ask somebody and we will gladly assist.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always in there, so if you don't say hi, I'll probably say hi to you.
If you guys want to drop me this too, I'll post it on my website. So if you guys don't mind.
Oh, for sure.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's also great for your listeners too, because it's these are deep questions to me. So it's nice if you're a fan or enjoy somebody's work to see a different aspect of their life, a different way of thinking that's separate from the standard feed that you would see or the topics. So yeah, I think it's a benefit to your listeners to get to learn you a little better.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, I like the format. It's good. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thanks for talking to us, taking the time to talk to us. It's awesome. And just to roll into the bonus round, we have 7 bonus questions.
Cool.
Number 7 divided by 22 is pi. I learned that from you.
You said it enough.
Yep. All right. Bonus question number 1. What quality do you most admire in a woman?
Boobs.
Honesty is the best answer.
That's it. Next question.
Question 2.
Well, the same answer that I would in a man, in the sense that divine masculine.
I wanna Hawaii. I wanna Hawaii. Yo what? 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 I wanna Hawaii. I wanna Hawaii. Yo
Why
what?
is one man rich and another man poor? Why we ain't satisfied? Why we gotta have more? Why your suicide rates on the rest so high? Why I tell you the truth but you say don't lie? Why is being a good father at an all-time low? Why is it acceptable? Yo, why I don't know. Why she blame him and he blame her? It's useless. Ask yourself this question. Why you making excuses? Why do parents gotta bury their kids? Why we text and drive, not caring how scary it is? Why it's so hard to forgive and leave the past behind? And if you did, then that's divine. Why don't you help your brother when you see him fall? Why do we act like God don't see it all? Why do we call them black, them white, them Asians and use labels? Now that's racism.
I don't wanna Hawaii.
Why?
I don't wanna Hawaii. Why? I don't wanna Hawaii.
Why?
I don't wanna Hawaii. Why? I don't wanna Hawaii.
Why?
I don't wanna Hawaii. Why? I don't wanna Hawaii.
Why?
I don't wanna Hawaii.
Why is there innocent people locked up for life, while some people can't say nothing nice? Why do we always gotta question what all of it means? And why won't you follow your dreams? Tell me why. The night when you took my dad, why'd you let me see my grandpa cry? And tell me why. And why do you choose to hide, even though you was born to fly? And tell me why. And why don't we turn from all the hate? And why don't we learn from all mistakes? Why do I keep on wrecking these fat beats? And teachers don't make more than professional athletes? And why? And why? And why? And why? And why? And why?
I don't wanna Hawaii.
Why?
I don't wanna Hawaii. Why? I don't wanna Hawaii.
Why?
I don't wanna Hawaii. Why? I don't wanna Hawaii. I don't wanna Hawaii. Why? I don't wanna Hawaii. I don't wanna Hawaii. Why?
This should be considered entertainment and not therapy. We hope you benefit from our resources available at 13questionspodcast.com. Thank you for listening.